What's up, guys? It's John with National Sports Entertainment, and I wanted to do a recap. Obviously, we had our live video yesterday. Everyone that attended that, I thank you. It was a great live session. They all are because I just feel like it's positive, as always, positive vibes. A lot of cool theories that always go on, and just people that bring a lot of insight. So I always appreciate them. I'm thinking we should do one for the Browns. Texans. I think that's the first playoff game, so you guys can let me know if that's good. So yeah, thank you to everybody that came by. It was fun. Uh, I wanted to go into do a recap, and I was just perusing through YouTube, just looking for something, and I keep getting recommended ESPN, I guess because of the sector that I'm in. So I get recommended things I like, and I found something just too ridiculous. And it's not. Again, I can't say I'm surprised because we predicted these things. And it's not to be braggadocious. It's a good sign. I'm going to show you guys in a minute. But anyway, right now we had again a really good week. So we got the exact playoff predictions we thought we'd get. I went into that in our live video by the Steelers winning and the Texans or Titans winning. It ensured that when the Bills played the Dolphins, the only way the Bills could have matched up with the Steelers and the Dolphins with the Chiefs would have been a Bills win. So we basically knew that was going to happen, and they came through for us. We got the cover as well. And if the Dolphins had won, it would be Bills and Dolphins again next week. And it's just boring. And you could say, well, that maybe the NFL is going to give us boring. Maybe it's on the up and up. But I want to show you guys something really interesting. And obviously, with the Rams, we got them because we got Stafford versus Goff. And the reason that's important is because of this. It's just ridiculous. If you go back and watch the last 2, 3 videos I've done, and again, it's not to be braggadocious, it's just to show how openly scripted it really is. We went into how it was obviously going to be either the Vikings win or if they lost, the Rams were a lock because then we got the Golf versus the Rams, and you can see they got that lined up right here. I even said they were going to have the side by side. I mean, they're so predictable. And again, it's just using wrestling logic. Tyreek versus the Chiefs. We didn't predict Mike McCarthy versus the Packers, but I am going to beat them to an article because they haven't put one out yet. So you guys can look out for it. I bet you if you come here in about like 5 hours, they're going to upload TJ Stroud or CJ Stroud's going up against Joe Flacco, the oldest versus the youngest quarterback. And that was the other narrative that we explained. So we were kind of beating ESPN to the punch, which, is a good thing, but it's also just very revealing. And you would say, well, maybe it's not that revealing. People are buying it. This guy thinks it's going to be a nice spicy matchup. And then you go down a little bit and you start seeing that almost every other comment is somebody calling it scripted. So we're at 2 scripted comments. There we got another one. This one's like implying, I guess, RM. I guess he's not saying it's scripted. These next 2 are saying it's scripted. This one's saying because he's not even saying it's the refs. He's saying you made the refs do this. Good job, Mr. Goodell. This guy is really hyped for the game, so good for him. This guy as well. Another person is. This person is back to the script. The script, fun. It just the ratio is pretty crazy. So NFL Scriptwriters Association. It's interesting. It's very interesting, in my opinion. So maybe not every other one, but okay. I would say every third to fourth comment is somebody saying it's scripted, and a lot of those comments have the highest likes on any of these comments is this one right here. Just very simple to the point. SoFly was just saying, well written, bravo, and I agree with that sentiment. They did a great job on this script, but that's just for again. We don't really have anyone on this channel. I don't think we have a few that believes it's not scripted, but for the people that do, it's just so obvious. And I think again, the reason we do well, a lot of other people will use different methods as far as just fading the public or whatever it may be. A lot of these games, the Texans was one where people kept telling me, "Oh, the public's going to be on them." it's again, narratives reign supreme. So as somebody who's watched wrestling my whole life, I just feel like they are so far behind as far as where WWE is. I kid you not, if you flip between Washington, Michigan tonight and the Monday Night Raw, I bet you Night Raw looks more realistic. It's just, it's laughable at this point. And it's been laughable. But anyway, a lot of people waking up. And what needed to happen for us to get our, again, it was, I booked it like WrestleMania for us to get that payoff where now we have, again, Pittsburgh and Buffalo. So you got DeMar, that connection. You get the Rams versus the Lions, so the Stafford Golf connection, and then to get CJ and Joe, the oldest versus youngest. And these aren't like stretches. Like I'm not using crazy gematria here, where we're going to the 48th prime number. I'm literally just given pretty obvious scripts, and we got them all. And just picking a parlay on those is insane because the Titans were 5 point underdogs, the Rams were 5 point underdogs. There were so many teams that needed to lose. The Bills were again minus 150, so I mean close to even. And the Texans was a pick 'em. So again, it's not like these were obvious games. They were not. They were only obvious if you're looking for a script. So I think we're going to do really good for this wild card weekend. Again, I expect ESPN to have an article about, again, CJ Stroud's apparently going to be on the McAfee show and talking about how he silenced the doubters, which is just ridiculous because I don't know what doubters there were. I don't know who was saying, Houston sucks, CJ's overrated. If anything, it reminds me of Dion when he's winning and everybody's like rooting for him and he's like, oh yeah, we proved you all wrong. I don't get why they do this, but either way, it's fine. He's going to push that, and they're going to push, obviously, him as inexperienced. They might bring it up on the show. Again, Pat McAfee's another stooge. He pretends to be impartial, or he pretends to be anti-media, kind of like Shannon Sharp, who's so mad at Jameis Winston for having the audacity to, go against his coach's orders. And it just seems very un Shannon Sharp like to say, he said he would have purposely got a false start or offsides if he knew that was going to happen and he was on the team. So basically, he's saying he would have betrayed all of his brothers because all the teammates were in on it. They wanted to do it. So he's basically saying he would have sided with the coach and told all of his football brothers that they can go pound sand. And again, I think they use Shannon Sharp as a puppet. They understand a lot of people like him and they consider him like the opposite of Skip Bayless, who's considered like the old media. So they're trying this whole new media thing. You see Pat Bev and Roan, you see others doing it, but Shannon is just, in my opinion, the same. Kind of like Rogan. Not that not in a bad way. I think Rogan does some good things, but they bring on people that are already coming out about things. Like Shannon just had Cat Williams on, and now people are like, "Oh, he's keeping it real." So they just do that. He wouldn't have had Cat Williams on if ESPN and Disney and all of his superiors did not allow it and tell him it was going to be okay. So I wanted to cover just again a recap of, in these videos, it's not to be cocky, but like there's not much to recap because we nailed it to a T. We like said how these teams were going to win, why they were going to win. We missed the Lions Vikings, but again, I specifically said if the Lions win, the Rams, put the farm on it. So we have an amazing idea of exactly the matchups we're going to get. Now we have to look at who has to win these matchups in order for us to get, uh, you know, next divisional rounds. And again, they're not all going to be exactly perfect, especially after that ratio in the comment section. They might like, I understand they know that people know it's scripted, but based off what I just read, I don't even think the NFL was expecting this many people call it scripted. And this is the time last year when Pat McAfee came out and said, "Oh, it's a problem, NFL. You got to do something. The referees are so bad. People think it's scripted." Well, now people are giving Goodell and the NFL quote script writers the flack. So I'm curious what McAfee says if he's going to come out and say, "Man, it's trending on Twitter. NFL scripted." If he's going to take the same tactic as last year, which didn't work too well. by this year, it seems like way more people believe it. So he'll probably take a different tactic. But I'm curious what Pat McAfee's going to say about it. Obviously, we have a couple intriguing matchups, and I don't just mean the matchups themselves. I mean what we could get in the next round. If I'm not mistaken, a Chiefs win and a Browns win would give us, since the Chiefs are the higher seed, would give us Baltimore, Cleveland, unless somehow the Steelers win, which I doubt. So it's looking like I know we discussed that already, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but while the line is nice and juicy before it moves to like 3.5, I do think that of all the games, what makes the most sense to me is the Browns play the uh, the Ravens, obviously, and that was one that NFL on ESPN, that same exact page, put out twice, like a week ago. I brought this up a few times. Someone had tweeted out, "Oh my gosh, I'm a Ravens fan, and I'm already dreading the possibility of playing Flacco." And ESPN put out like the laughing emoji or like the ice cold emoji. I forget which one they used. I'm sure they put a lot of thought into that, probably more thought into that than these scripts. But they were like, "Could you imagine?" And then like 18 hours later, it was the same. It was NFL on ESPN reposted the same tweet, the same post, and wrote the same thing. It was like, in case you guys didn't see the first one, don't forget. And it's just they plant the seeds in such a hand-fisted way, where I genuinely mean this. WrestleMania is so much harder to predict, and WWE in general, than calling some of these playoff matchups. And watching wrestlers looks more realistic than watching some of these schmucks blowing assignments. Listening to wrestling announcers call spots sounds more realistic than these football announcers overhyping plays, immediately running damage control. They got the rules expert on deck, in case there's anything that's out of their realm of expertise. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, I basically wanted to recap where we're at, and I think it's a good sign because, again, I think if we're this over the target, it bodes well for our preseason picks, which not many of them changed. I went into uh, the Niners, the Ravens, and all that. As far as the Lions, we knew they were going to do good, so not much changed. I mean, this was a pretty darn good season overall, which is fine. We obviously only had 2 seasons. We had the one last and then this one, but as a channel, but we I think it's only going to get more obvious. I had posted this in my Discord. I would not be surprised in the least if in the next year and a half the NFL openly comes out and admits that they are in some form sports entertainment, because they are sports entertainment legally, but of course they don't say that. But I think they might come out and say they're in some form. They're not a complete competition. Yeah, they're going to say something because too many people understand now, and it's like when enough people, as funny as it sounds, there was a time when a lot of people thought wrestling was real. Once enough people understood it wasn't, that's when they embraced it. So expect the same from these guys. Now with Vegas, obviously, it makes it interesting, but people would still bet on it if they think it's entertainment. I don't see why they wouldn't. They would just bet the way we're betting now. So I think we're just ahead of the curve on that. But anyway, looking at some of these spreads, they're pretty intriguing. Obviously, you see Philly looks pretty darn suspicious, but you never know. Again, sometimes I think these lines are psychological. And again, the Browns Texans looks pretty juicy. I figured that would be pretty close to a pick 'em. This honestly is like what the spread should be. This actually makes perfect sense. It doesn't look like a trap by any means. What I like about it is again the fact that we would get Joe versus the Ravens. I don't typically like three peats, not whatever you want to call them, where you have divisional opponents, so they wind up playing 3 times. But in some rare instances, it makes a lot of sense. And to me, it makes a lot of sense. Joe versus his old team. Right now, we're going to have the oldest versus the youngest. That's another one we covered, and it was the reason I liked this matchup. And it was the only reason I didn't like the Jags to make it. I would usually like the Jags over the Steelers, But when I did the simulator, I realized, and I thank ESPN for that because I'm sure they ran it and made sure they got the right script. The Jags winning would have matched up, I believe, the Jags with Houston and the Steelers with the Bills. I think no, they're playing the Bills. Sorry, I think it would have been the Houston and the Bills, and the Steelers Browns or something. It would have been a different matchup if the Jags won, or no, the Steelers wouldn't have been in it. Or I might be off. I don't know. There's a lot of different things. All I know for sure is the Jags had to lose for the Texans to match up with the Browns, and that to me that was such an appealing draw. So again, it was just all contingencies which worked out. So yeah, uh, I'll have. I wanted to do this video just to cover. Again, I thought it was good news how many people are on at least open-minded to the idea that okay, this could definitely be scripted, and we're seeing that more and more. And I don't think again, I don't know the extent how many percentage of people are saying they believe it is, but based off of that last post, I wouldn't be shocked in the least if we got a couple swerves now, just because again, I don't know. They are blatant about it, but sometimes it's like, oh shit, we didn't realize it was this bad. And Pat McAfee hinted at that last year, where he's like, it's NFL doesn't realize how big of a problem it is, how many people believe it is scripted. So I think that I honestly thought there was a good chance they might take that post down, or at the least like start hiding all the comments or having bots fill in the comments so you can't see. But while it was nice and early, I figured I would go through that so people can see how many. It's not just a few of us. It's like I said, literally every third or fourth comment is somebody calling it scripted, and then there's if you go through the replies, most of the people are. You have a few people that go to the same argument where it's like, oh no, it can't. You're just mad because you didn't get the results you wanted, and it's like how could we clobber that? So not us, they weren't talking to me, but to the guy who said it. And in our case, obviously, we have no horse in the race. We do well because it's scripted. So whenever someone like tries to use that argument, I just think it's a weak argument because I guess again, if someone's just constantly losing or their favorite team sucks and they're not scripted to do well, then yeah, you could say that person might be salty. But in a lot of people's cases, they do very well because of the understanding it's a script, and there'd be no reason for them to be upset. I'm certainly going to take it. I'm not upset that the Rams game was scripted. I'm not upset the Bills game was scripted because it helped us in the long run. Now, while I'm here, obviously, why not? I haven't picked college grade this year, but I do think I have a read on this one. All year long, Washington's been pushed as this, quote, disrespected team who just isn't that, they're a good team and that they deserve their flowers. And then Penix doesn't get the Heisman. And this is like where you can say the doubters, I guess, because I know not a lot of people had Washington going to the national championship, but they do have a good team. But they're always like when they played Oregon and they beat them, the announcers were really planting the seeds, like, "Oh, this Washington team has a lot to prove." I thought it was a pretty even matchup, but Vegas had it 10 points, and they really pushed it at like I said, the Huskies were a far inferior team to the Ducks, which I just don't think that was the case. So here we have a pretty close spread. So it's about half the spread that they were against the Oregon Ducks. And I think Michigan's a better team, so I just don't think it makes any sense. So I actually like Washington a lot. I think they're going to give Penix his flowers because, and also I notice this stuff all the time. I wasn't even going to bring up the five theory, but I don't know, it can go either way, I guess, but it's very interesting. The closing line is 55.5 on the over under and 5.5 on the spread because ESPN put out an article. It was just posted in my Discord, and again, I can't make this stuff up. About it said Washington's 5-0 straight up and 5-0 against the spread as underdogs on the road, or it was as underdogs in general. It was one of the two. So the two fives there, and then we have 5-5-5-5 across the board here. Really interesting. So you guys could do it that way you will. I'm not a gematria guy, but when I notice nothing but fives, I do find it pretty interesting. So yeah, maybe since Washington's five, got the fives, it means they're gonna win or cover. But that's not my logic. My logic is Michigan's the big bad bully, taking people's lunch money, giving people swirlies, and Washington is the team standing up to the big bad bully. Michigan beat Bama, who's obviously just always considered a perennial top team. They rolled Ohio State. They beat all the top teams. I think everyone's going to be on Michigan. They got the cheating scandal where again I feel like people are going to really root for Washington. So you might have some money on people that want Washington to win, and people like me that think it's scripted. But in my live yesterday, somebody told me money is heavily on Michigan, and I could see why. This is like a perfect parlay play where people are just throw it in the parlay. Okay, this is a guarantee or close to one. There's no way Michigan loses. They're too good of a football team. All these different things. So yeah, I think Washington winning makes perfect sense here. Really push Penix Jr. So especially if he won the Heisman, I wouldn't be as strong on him. But since he didn't, you could argue he was screwed. I think it makes perfect sense for Washington to win. They came this far. Last year, TCU let down big time, and they're really trying to push the Pac-12. So now, if Washington wins, then you have to imagine. Although I think they might be moving next year, so it might not matter. Like they're moving to the Big 12 or something, aren't they? But either way, I think they want to make the Pac-12 look pretty strong. And with Colorado, that's always a big deal. Like I said, they might be moving. I think they are moving conferences. Yeah, they're talking about the realignment. So I'm imagining maybe Washington. I think Washington is one of the team. Like basically, the whole Pac-12 is moving. It's kind of weird, but I think pushing Washington makes perfect sense. And again, with the scandal with Michigan, they just come off as the perfect heels, perfect team to boo. So it's a feel good story, and they don't give the fans too many feel good stories. But with Penix, just because again he didn't win the Heisman, I really think they want to get his stock up and show that this guy is the real deal. I think he has a spectacular game, and I think Washington wins. So yeah, I love them on the money line. I figured I'd cover this pick. It'd be a waste not to because I am playing it. I do like it. So if it was like a 50-50, then I would just kind of brush through it. But I wanted to go into why I liked Washington. And they are literally, I just noticed they have opposite mascot. Like, so we got the W and then we got the M, which is the upside down W. So some interesting stuff. Yeah, again, you guys can do with that what you will. I can't go down that rabbit hole. It just drives me insane. When I see really obvious things, I try and point them out. We also do have the literal dogs, so maybe that's something. The Huskies, UConn did it. Although I don't know if they were dogs when they did it. I think they were favorites, but underdog Husky. So again, that didn't really go and factor into my decision making, nor did all the fives. But you can't tell me all those fives is a coincidence, and they just happen to print out. Oh, they're 5-5 on the spread. To me, that's just too ridiculous. So, or 5-0 and then 5-0 is what it was. So yeah, I think we're gonna get Washington. Nice 2-1 payout almost. So definitely worth the play, and hopefully it comes through. We've been doing really good in the NFL. Again, I am admittedly not as good with college as I am with the NFL. But I just think more people, again, basically due to the schedule they had, respectively, and just how they're pushed, I think more money will be on Michigan. I think whoever told me that in the live is probably right. So if Washington was getting like plus 280, okay, then I could see maybe they don't want to pay that out if enough people pick Washington. But again, I think more people are going to have Michigan in a prop or in a parlay or even just lay the points. Okay, if they win, they're probably going to beat them down. So the fact that it's a close spread makes me really like Washington. So yeah, I'll go into all the playoff games. I'll be dropping them as the week goes on, and we'll have time to do NBA, which is cool because we have a little bit of a breather, obviously, with the NFL. And so I try and get NBA out whenever I can. But yeah, I just want to thank everybody again. And yeah, let me know if Browns Texans sounds like a good game to go live for. Again, it seems like it's going to be one of the more scripted games of them all. just because of Flacco and CJ. It's just two quarterbacks that have so much history to be told.
Okay, when you turn around, you're going to see some more.
You have a turkey and cheese.
Let's imagine that LL Cool.
There we go. Interrupting me. I'm surprised that ad didn't come up sooner. To be honest, that usually within like seconds the ad's coming up and you, not the ad, whatever. They're commercials and then they go into the article. Anyway, I was done anyway. I just figured I would go into exactly why I like Washington, and yeah, just do a recap again. We had a great week. Anyone that tailed, we profited like 19 units on the week, so it was a very very good week. We hit most of our games. We hit all of our leg threes, some for good plus odds. So it was a good week, and I think it's going to be another good week next week. Obviously, not as many games in play, but again, some of them I just feel like would make no sense if certain teams won. So take care and happy earnings.